Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Aspiration. It's 23rd September 2025, and we are diving into another powerful editorial analysis, perfect for bank, SSC, and railway aspirants who want to sharpen their comprehension, vocab, and current affairs. This time, we are breaking down an article on India's push to spur consumption in the economy, why the government is shifting gears, what's happening with private investment, and how GST reforms and income tax changes are playing a role. We'll start with the top 5 vocabulary words to boost your exam prep and then move into a clear reading of the editorial with quick takeaways. By the end, you'll not only understand the article but also pick up high-value words for your next competitive exam. Okay students, let's crack open our first vocabulary power pack from today's editorial. These 5 words are gold for your exams, so listen closely. Flagging, adjective, this means something is getting weaker or declining. Example, the team's energy was flagging after the long day. Synonyms, weakening, diminishing, fading. Antonyms, strengthening, growing, rising. Plateauing, verb present participle, when growth levels off or stops rising. Example, the company's profits are plateauing after 2 strong years. Synonyms, stabilizing, leveling off, flattening. Antonyms, surging, escalating, increasing. Robust, adjective, this means strong, healthy, or solid. Example, India's infrastructure spending is still robust despite global slowdowns. Synonyms, sturdy, solid, resilient. Antonyms, weak, fragile, unstable. Predicament, noun, a difficult or tricky situation, a dilemma. Example, she found herself in a predicament when both jobs required relocation. Synonyms, dilemma, plight, quandary. Antonyms, advantage, solution, ease. Inertia, noun, this is about staying still or unwilling to change. Example, economic inertia can slow down reforms. Synonyms, stagnation, inaction, passivity. Antonyms, activity, motion, dynamism. So, these are the first 5 words for today, not just big words, but real exam fuel. Make them yours by using them in your own sentences today itself. Let's dive into today's first editorial from The Hindu, titled Consumption Conundrum, on the Indian economy's predicament. Here's the first half of the article. The government's push this year to spur consumption in the economy is a much-needed policy reprioritization at a time when several other engines of growth are either flagging or plateauing. The economy is a composite of household consumption, private investment, government expenditure, and net exports. Of these, only government expenditure has witnessed robust growth over the past few years thanks to the Modi government's infrastructure push. It has also made available interest-free loans to states to do the same. However, as Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has indicated in the last 2 union budgets, even though the centre will increase its capital expenditure, it will not be at the blistering rate of 30% to 35% that the early post-COVID-19 pandemic years saw. The government has other developmental and defence priorities that need funds too. It is time for the private sector to step up its investments. Private investment has grown, but not nearly at the rate needed to move India from 6% to 6.5% growth to the more than 8% needed to meet the targets. Given that industrial capacity utilization has not crossed 80% since March 2011, the only way to induce more private investment is to increase demand substantially. Net exports, especially merchandise, are struggling due to the global uncertainty around trade and the US's 50% tariffs imposed on Indian imports. That is, demand from abroad is petering out, which leaves household consumption to do the heavy lifting. Now, let's discuss the meaning and key takeaways from this part. First, focus on consumption. the government is now shifting gears, making household spending a priority because other growth engines, private investment, exports, are weak or stagnant. Second, government spending was carrying the load. Infrastructure push and state loans have driven growth so far, but that pace can't be maintained forever. Third, private sector must step up. Without businesses investing more, India can't move from tilde 6% growth to the 8% plus needed to hit targets. Fourth, exports are weak. Global uncertainty plus US tariffs are hurting India's export demand, so domestic consumption has to fill the gap. Fifth, key theme, demand matters. Unless demand inside India rises sharply, companies won't invest, and growth will stay below potential. In simple terms, this editorial is telling us that household spending is now India's main growth engine, and both the government and private sector need to act to boost it. Alright everyone, now that we've gone through the first part of the editorial and understood the background, let's move on to the second half. There are two ways to encourage people to spend, increasing their incomes and lowering prices. The GST rate reforms, with effect from 22nd September, are a significant step in executing the latter. According to a study published by FICCI, more than 3/4 of rural monthly expenditure will attract either nil or 5% GST rates. This was previously 56%. For urban Indians, this proportion has been increased from half to 2/3. On the income side, the government tried to put more money in people's pockets by reducing income tax rates in Budget 2025. This was a welcome and necessary step, although it is not enough to encourage a change in spending behavior. People are more likely to save than spend that extra amount. The other way disposable income will rise substantially is if companies decide to increase wages. However, apart from a few niche sectors, India has an oversupply of labor, and wages will simply not grow fast enough. There is also a skill deficit that needs to be urgently addressed. This is the unfortunate predicament that the Indian economy finds itself in. Consumption is the only driver of growth that is largely immune to global factors. But it also has high inertia, needing relatively more fiscal investment before it can get a jump start. First, ways to boost spending. The editorial highlights two levers: higher incomes through wages or tax cuts, and lower prices through GST reforms. Second, GST reforms help. Rural and urban spending on essentials will be taxed less, which encourages households to spend more rather than save. Third, income increase is limited. Tax cuts are good, but most people may still save rather than spend. Wage growth is slow due to labor oversupply. Fourth, skill deficit challenge. The economy also needs better skills to push wages higher and improve productivity. Fifth, consumption is key but slow. Domestic spending is now the main engine for growth because it is largely immune to global factors like exports or international demand. However, it has high inertia, meaning it needs significant government or fiscal support to pick up speed quickly. Now, let's move on to our second set of vocabulary words from today's editorial. These are key for bank, SSC, and railway exams, so make sure you note them down and understand their usage. Spur, verb, to encourage or stimulate something to happen. Example, the government's policy aims to spur private investment. Synonyms, boost, propel, drive. Antonyms, hinder, deter. Induce, verb, to cause or lead to something. Example, high demand can induce companies to increase production. Synonyms, prompt, trigger, encourage. Antonyms, prevent, dissuade. Blistering, adjective, extremely fast, intense, or severe. Example, the company posted blistering growth in the post-pandemic years. Synonyms, rapid, fierce, intense. Antonyms, mild, slow, gentle. Petering out, phrasal verb, gradually diminishing or coming to an end. Example, Export demand from abroad is petering out due to global uncertainty. Synonyms: fading, dwindling, declining. Antonyms: surging, increasing, intensifying. Deficit, noun, a shortage or gap. Example: India faces a deficit in skilled labor in certain sectors. Synonyms: shortfall, lack. Antonyms: surplus, excess. These words are not just vocabulary, they are high-utility terms that help you understand editorials, economic news, and government policies. Try making your own sentences with them to remember them better. Alright, moving on to our second editorial for today, titled Basic Structure, on the Mysore Dasara Festival. In this part, we focus on the Supreme Court's reaffirmation of secularism and the significance of state-sponsored cultural events. Let's read the first half of the editorial. The Supreme Court of India recently reaffirmed that secularism is a fundamental principle and part of the basic structure of the Constitution of India. While this is a welcome restatement, it is concerning that the court has to periodically reiterate this foundational aspect of Indian nationhood. The need arose from a misguided petition that sought to communalize a moment of celebration for all Indians. The Karnataka government had invited International Booker Prize-winning Kannada writer Banu Mushtaq, who is Muslim, to inaugurate the Mysore Dasara festival at the Chamundeshwari temple, which she did on Monday. This festival, a state-sponsored cultural event that is not purely religious, serves as an occasion for all communities to come together and share in the joy of the festival. The petition filed in the court alleged that Ms. Mushtaq's participation violated Articles 25 and 26 of the Constitution, which guarantee freedom of religion. A bench of Justices Vikram Nath and Sandeep Mehta rightly dismissed the petition, clarifying that the Dasara festival is a state event, not a private religious ceremony. The court emphasized that the state cannot discriminate based on religion when organizing public events and questioned whether the petitioner had even read the Constitution's preamble, which unambiguously promotes equality and secularism. The Karnataka High Court had previously upheld the government's decision, stating that a person of one faith participating in the events of another does not violate anyone's constitutional right. Discussion of meaning. Key takeaways. Now let's discuss the meaning and key points from this part. First, secularism reaffirmed. The Supreme Court confirmed that secularism is a core principle of India's constitution, part of its basic structure. Second, state versus religion. The Dasara festival is state-sponsored, not purely religious, meaning public events must be inclusive and cannot discriminate based on faith. Third, misguided petition. The court dismissed a petition trying to communalize a cultural event, showing that legal safeguards protect participation across religions. Fourth, constitutional clarity. Articles 25 and 26 guarantee freedom of religion, and the preamble promotes equality and secularism, reinforcing that Indian citizens of any faith can partake in public state events. Key takeaway: the editorial highlights the importance of upholding secularism and equality in public celebrations. The state cannot favor or exclude anyone based on religion, ensuring unity and inclusiveness in cultural events. Alright everyone, now that we've understood the first half of the Mysore Dasra festival editorial, let's move on to the second half. The constitutional right to practice and profess religion cannot be interpreted as a right to restrict others from participating in a faith's practices. Restricting participation in any public gathering based on religion is indefensible in a pluralistic society. Although some places of worship still limit access to certain groups, such practices continue to be a source of legal and ethical debate. Those who perceive a threat to their religion from someone who is voluntarily and happily joining its festivities are either cynical or cunning. In fact, over many centuries and across different geographies, festivals and pilgrimages have united India's diverse population, often transcending social barriers. The acceptance of this shared, mixed cultural heritage is a common thread among all Indian political parties, even amid their disagreements. However, a new group of political opportunists is exploiting this harmony by creating communal rifts, turning the logic of coexistence on its head. As the Supreme Court has demonstrated, these individuals need to be held accountable. Let's break down the key points from this section. First, limits of religious rights. The right to practice one's religion does not allow restricting others from participating. Second, pluralism is essential. Restricting participation based on faith is unacceptable in India's diverse society. Third, historical perspective. Festivals and pilgrimages have historically united communities, transcending social and cultural barriers. Fourth, political opportunism. Some groups try to exploit communal harmony for political gain, which the courts actively check. Key takeaway: the editorial stresses that constitutional rights, pluralism, and social harmony must be protected, and communal exploitation should be legally and ethically challenged. That brings us to the end of today's editorial analysis session on aspiration. We covered two major editorials today. We also discussed two sets of important vocabularies from today's editorials. Editorials are not just news, they are a rich source of exam-ready vocabulary, economic, legal, and social insights, and they help sharpen your analytical skills for bank, SSC, and railway exams. Thank you for staying tuned. Keep reading, keep learning, and keep preparing. That's all for today. See you in the next session. Goodbye.